Bonsoir à tous. Isabelle Leroux, I'm the new president of the Alliance Française of Miami Metro, and it's my pleasure to welcome you tonight for this event organized by the two co-chairs of the Cultural Program Committee. And I would like to introduce you to Florence Klein and Catherine Tissot. Where are you, Catherine? Thank you to both of you for organizing this event tonight. So this event is part of our cultural program that we run all year long. You can find all the information on our website. And you know that we are not only a cultural center, we are also a language center. We teach French, adult, children, in person, online, group, private. Anything, we can do everything. So you can contact us through our administrative team, and I would like to thank them also, Elisabeth de Gouzel and Stéphanie Grosjean, who participate into the organization tonight, and also all the information on our website. You can also be a member of Alliance Française. It's very important. We used to say that an Alliance Française, it's a little piece of France, and that's true. So if you become a member, you will be able to participate into all our events. So it's very important for you, and you know we will be so happy if you could be part of our community. Now the bees cannot wait anymore, so I'm going to give the floor to Florence and Max.
And you know why, Isabelle? Because they fly away. Thank you very much, Isabelle. And thank you everyone for being here and for this very special event. Max just landed from Brazil, where he went to see his little Brazilian bees. I hope they are as nice as in Miami.
Yes, they are.
Okay, great. So we're very happy about that. Thank you for being with us. And so Maximilian Ebrard is the managing director of Ubees, a company that deals with bees at large. And we will learn more about it in a few seconds. But first, I wanted to give you a little gift. Wow. Yeah, special for you. So please look at it.
What is it?
I know your mantra in life. You know, I've been knowing you for a long time. And so can you read what's on the cap?
So it's a very cool cap saying, "Be kind to the bees."
That's what he does. That's what he does.
Thank you.
So now we're ready.
Now we're ready, exactly. Now I'm ready for
we can go.
The speech.
Okay. So as you will see with Max, it's all an adventure. When you think it's science, he makes you want to adopt a bee, even Isabelle. And when you think it's business, you discover that he saves also farmers and their family. Max has many faces, and that's what you are about to discover. But of course, Max, you will be much better than me to introduce yourself, so please do it.
Well, first, thanks everyone for joining us tonight. I'm super happy to be able to give that speech at the Alliance Française. So my background, I'm an HEC Paris, for the ones knowing the school, and I like to define myself as the only HEC who is a beekeeper at the same time, because I think this is never seen in the history of the school. But to give you a bit of more context, so I like to define myself as someone who's curious and who loves strange things. So for example, when I graduated, I was a major in entrepreneurship, and my project at the end of school was to launch basically a space in Brittany, France, where you could breed lobster. And this was also something very strange for the jury, because they were expecting software or something, and I brought lobsters. So after school, I went to a very cool brand, which some of you may know, called Le Slip Français. So I went to underwear.
Nice move, you know, from lobster to, well, why not?
Exactly. I was the first employee of this very young startup back then. After a few times then, I decided I had enough of the underwear and I wanted a bit of sun. So I joined a rum distillery called Rhum Trois Rivières in Martinique, which was also a very strange move back then for the school. They almost didn't sign my my internship convention, the contract. And then I finally decided I wanted to become serious, and I created a first company doing honey, another one doing software, and I finally founded Ubees, which we're going to talk about tonight.
Can I ask you something?
Yes.
Can I take the tag off the cap?
Yes.
Because when you move, you know, it's going like this. Thank you. Now we can talk. Okay. So why are the bees so important?
That's a great question. So to explain that, I think a picture is better than 1,000 words. So I'm going to start with this. So this is the life you know. You go to the supermarket. There is plenty of cool things to eat. And this is what is going to happen if the bees disappear. So I guess, that's why the bees are so important. If I put this, a bit more in some context. So 80% of the plants need bees to reproduce. This is the result of an evolution between plants and pollinators for millions of years. So 80% of the plants, it's more or less 50% of what we eat. So this is what we lose if the bees disappear. And as you know, bees are challenged in nature right now. So that's why they're so important, because they make us survive.
And so I have a very personal question. You are, how did you fall in love with the bees? How did it happen?
So I actually wrote my thesis on natural capital. Natural capital is, for example, all the things that nature provides that everybody assumes are free. Air that you can breathe, water that you can drink. And I could go on with the list, but one of it is pollination, because thanks to pollination, we have food on the table with vitamins, fruits, and all that. And so I became interested in, this service called pollination, which back then to me was a bit of a mystery. And more or less at the same time, I go out of my parents' house, who live in the Paris suburbs, and I basically bump into a beekeeper with the suit on, with the honey boxes in the street. And I'm like, but what are you doing here? Like, this is not a place for you to be, what's going on? And he says, but there's actually tons of bees around here, you just don't know. And this is how, I started my relationship with the bees.
Oh, nice. You bumped into the bees.
I bumped into the bees, literally, exactly.
So I've known you for a while, and you are a very successful entrepreneur and CEO.
Thank you.
You won many awards, like the French Entrepreneurship Award in New York, last year the Special Jury Award for the Mercure HEC for North America, and a few weeks ago the French Trade Advisor Award at the French Tech Capital Days. So congratulations for all of that. And you made a business success out of an agricultural science-based endeavor. From the hive to success, how did you do it?
So I was working with bees in France, and I decided, so it's very cool, but the impact is limited, and I wanted to go bigger and have a bigger impact. And so this is where I thought, where are the bees important in the world? And this is where I actually discovered, researching, a super interesting fact is, in France or in Europe, generally speaking, the beekeeping business is about producing honey. In the US, and generally in the Americas, the beekeeping business is about pollination. So a beekeeper in France earns his life by producing honey and selling it. In the US, it's the opposite. He's renting bees to farmers because they need them to pollinate the crop. This dates back to the history, because most of the plants or the fruits that we eat nowadays in the US are actually originate from Europe. And so when the first Europeans came to the US, they brought the trees with them, planted them, the trees did not produce. A few years later, they brought the bees, and suddenly the trees started bearing fruits again. And so since then, there is a very deep-rooted culture of, I need bees to produce my crop. This was the beginning, and then there is also a very practical efficiency answer to that, because some culture without bees, they just don't produce. The most commonly known is California produces 80% of the world's almonds. And if you don't put bees on almonds, they produce nothing. So every year there is a migration of 2.5 million beehives to California, Central Valley, just for the pollination, 6 weeks, and then they move out again.
That's incredible. Wow. So how do you move the bees? I mean, do they put them on trucks or?
Yes. So first you need to wait. So to move a beehive, first you need to wait until it's dark. because the bee has a very specific organ on the top here, which is giving its angle to the sun.
Wow.
So it's the bee GPS. And this is how the bee flies and knows exactly how to come back to the hive. So if you turn out the sun, or when it's dark, the bee is blind. So the bees, you will never find the bee when you party at night because they don't come out. So you wait until it's dark, so all the bees are in the box. Then you put the box on a big truck. We're talking the big flatbeds on the highways. I put between 600 and 800 beehives on the truck.
Wow.
And then the truck drives, sometimes for 1 week nonstop, because some of my bees are in Florida, and I drive them to California, and it's a whole week nonstop driving. And the amazing thing is that those insects know that if they leave the hive while moving, they won't find back home and they will die. And so it's extraordinary, but they stay in the boxes while the truck is driving. The danger is when you stop, for example, for gas, you need to stop at night in a dark station because if you stop during the day and you fill up the gas, the bees will start flying and everybody will scream at you at the station.
I'm sure.
That happened to me a few times.
So you came to the US to develop Ubees. Can you tell us the story, how it started and how you developed it?
So I have actually two co-founders in this venture called Ubees, two French as well. We have an email loop among alumni. And I saw an email saying, we need someone who understands bees, who knows management and finance. And I was like, well, that's a very unusual profile, but it could be me. And so I started discussing with them. We discussed a bit about this potential that I had identified as well, which sometimes, life brings you opportunities. One day I received a call, and it was one of my co-founders, and he says, can you be tomorrow in South Dakota, Sioux Falls? So I had to, open my computer and look at the map because I knew New York, but Sioux Falls, South Dakota was, I was not even sure it was in the US back then. I thought it's somewhere Canada, US. And so I go to South Dakota, where I discover, a whole new world because the beekeeping in the US is mechanized, so you move hives on pallets. You don't move them by hand. You have forklifts. So everything is basically commercial. And so I start in South Dakota. And back then, this was the first operation which we acquired to start, which was between South Dakota and the US. And so I arrive. This was a very cool experience because it was winter, so minus 30 degrees, ice and snow everywhere. I had never seen that. So we had this first operation. Then we acquired another one in California, where I really discovered the scale of the pollination business because I was the one at the beginning coordinating the trucks incoming at night, unloading. So I personally placed some bees in almond farms, orchards. And then the last move lately was to develop Florida, because Florida has an amazing climate for the bees, not only for people, but the bees love it as well. So I started the nursery part of our beekeeping business, and then recently also some other locations.
Yeah, so let's talk about it. You developed LATAM, and you spent quite some time there, different locations, as you mentioned. Can you tell us about it?
Yes, so I pitched, actually you were there, but I pitched Ubees in New York. I think it was like 4 years ago. And at the end of my pitch, the global CEO of Nespresso comes and tells me, what you do is very interesting. Do you think the bees will pollinate coffee as they do for almonds and all the other things you tell us? And I'm like, I'm not sure, but let me do some research. I do some research, and indeed, coffee can be improved, productivity like 20 to 30% thanks to bees. And so I get back to him, and his eyes go like, wow. Because for him, 30% in his P&L is just game-changing. So he says, we need to do something in LATAM. So I say, okay, which country? He says, okay, Colombia. So then I decided with my founders that I would be the founding partner developing the business. So I moved for 1 year to Colombia. So I lived a bit in Bogota, was not truly in love with the city, but then I moved to Cartagena, which was way more Miami, so more my thing. And we grew the business there, and today we are present in Nicaragua, Ecuador, Costa Rica, Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, and then we expanded also to Africa, Ivory Coast, Nigeria, and then Asia, China, Thailand, and Indonesia.
So for coffee, for example, how does it work when you don't have the bees? How do they do it?
So the coffee tree is a tree. So that's a very good question, actually. So in nature, you have two types of trees. You have the trees which have on the same tree the male and female flowers. So they're close enough together where wind can basically pollinate. It's not the best, but it works. And then you have some other trees, almonds is a good example, where you have some trees that are male and some female. The problem is, we can move to meet ourselves. The trees can't.
And we have apps also.
We have apps, exactly. We have apps. We have tons of things, that are facilitating for us this encounter. For trees, we don't. So they need someone to do the job for them, and those are the bees. And so the coffee is one of those trees where on the same tree you have male and female, meaning the wind does naturally a bit of the job. However, it's not perfect because the wind is just blowing dust, and sometimes you're lucky the dust falls in the right location, sometimes not. The bees, they go from one flower to the heart of the other, and that's why it improves pollination, because it does a way better job than the wind, and this is what we've seen. The beans are bigger, sweeter, so basically the mating is more efficient, and that's how it works.
And to talk about it a little more, on the Nespresso partnership, what do you do specifically? I know you are developing some products, some things with them.
Yes.
Can you tell?
So the way it started is they were interested in getting more yield. We did it, it was very fun. They saw at the same time that if we make a coffee farm 20% more productive and we generate honey, which the farmer can then sell, we double the income of the farmer. So for them, this was a big challenge because, they're only one example, but they're one of those big corp that are making millions with a crop based on a lot of small farmers who, for most of them, usually live under the poverty line. And so one of their challenges is how do we support those farmers so they don't just quit? And for them, it's a big cost, this turnaround, because every time they need to find a new farm, matching the quality criteria, they need to vet them, and so on. And so they said, well, this is fantastic because they were looking for something to help their farmers to be more resilient and to basically deliver this coffee, making them millions. So from a crop productivity project, it became a farmer and living social income project. And the last turn, and I actually have a picture about that.
So it's a win-win situation, in fact.
Exactly, it's a shared value, win-win situation. And the last venture we have with them is, so it became a social venture project. And now the last thing is they said, but we have all this honey. Why don't we buy it and make a fantastic marketing story? So you have the same flower producing your coffee and your honey. And this is what you have here. So you have the famous Nespresso capsule Colombia origin, and then you have the honey coming, the coffee blossom honey coming from the exact same farms. And for them, it's a fantastic project. They make actually more margin on the honey than on the coffee. And they see this becoming a huge business line over the next years in their P&L.
And does the honey taste like coffee, or is there a difference? Can you tell?
So the honey doesn't taste exactly like coffee, but you find some roast, caramel, mocha notes. So there is something.
Sounds good. Sounds very good.
But what it has caffeine.
Oh.
So actually, this honey is kind of giving you the small kick, like you like to have it in the coffee.
Ah, that's funny.
So it has a secret.
It's the secret for the
Yes,
morning.
exactly. In the routine.
So why did you choose Miami to finally settle down?
Well, there's a lot of reasons, but I guess the first one is because for my work, it's very convenient because it's super connected with every hub in LATAM. I can fly anywhere, it's a direct flight. My co-founder lives in New York, and I was just in Brazil. For me, it was a 6-hour flight. For him, it was a 26-hour flight. So very practically speaking, it's a very good location to fly to LATAM, where I have a lot of bees. The other reason is because I love, the Latin American culture, and Miami is in my opinion, and it's personal, but the best of the two worlds. Because you have, the US, the organization, the infrastructure, but you also have typical culture. You have different suburbs here in Miami with a very specific identity, and I love this because it makes me feel a bit like in LATAM, but in the US, so I like this mix. And last but not least, dating back to my days in the Caribbean, I really enjoy, tropical weather where I wake up every day and there is sun, or when there is rain, it's not lasting forever. And so the weather was also...
And the little diving also, I heard.
And the diving, yes, because I love to dive. So fishing, just going to Biscayne Bay and fish is for me, it's a perk.
So another personal question. How do you go from HEC, Paris, the #1 business school in Europe, to the fields and your little pet bees? You could have had a C-level job in any big corporation, and finally you chose something very specific, and it was a challenge.
It was, but I think the main driver for me has always been I like to have fun and to be free. A C-level job is something that gives you this, but later in life. Usually, I have a lot of friends who started in banking, consulting, and it's a tough job at the beginning because you're a junior and you work hard. You get rewarded eventually 10 years later. It's, I'm intentionally, presenting things in a very black or white way. Life is not that way, but. And for me, I didn't want to do all that. So I was more in the mindset where I said, I have ideas. Let's follow one of my ideas and let's have fun immediately and do something cool. And this is why, underwear, rum, honey, bees. So that always has been my driver. It did not come, always easily. Everything in life is hard, one way or the other. This is what I learned. But it's true that what really makes the difference for me is when I visit, for example, my associated farmers in Colombia or Brazil, and they tell me, look, thanks to what we do, I can send my kids to school. Or I can, do this investment, and this is completely changing my life. This is very rewarding, and this is the type of impact I like to have, and I like to have it directly. And this is what is possible because I made my own company, I would say.
And we just talk about, what you're bringing to those families, but also let's talk about your values and the value you bring to the big corporations.
Yes.
Because that's a win-win for them too.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess when we started working with Nespresso, I was forced to rethink the strategy of the company because I had a big corporation making claims and willing to invest millions, sometimes billions, into sustainability. Because they identified this as a focus they needed to have to survive in the future and also to gain, of course, the consumers. The problem is they have no way to do it. When you talk to the big CEOs, they want to do sustainability, but they want to do it in a profitable way. So planting trees is not an option for them because they don't get anything, from it, except maybe a bit of carbon credits and some things. So they're kind of stuck. I want to do it, but I don't know how. And this is where the bees are super interesting for them, because we created this core sustainability project, which is extremely profitable because if we talk just about Nespresso, their vision is that this is going to be a 400 to 500 million US dollar business line in their P&L in 5 years. So they found a way to invest a little bit in bees, change the life of their farmers, and at the same time make hundreds of millions. And this is what is completely changing the way we approach them, because we don't talk anymore to the sustainability ESG departments who have budget but limited. Now we talk to really the production and the CEOs, because they're like, okay, so this can be an investment for sustainability, make my business more agile because I'm securing my supply. I'm also fighting inflation. This is what we do in Africa, for example, because with cocoa, prices right now are to the roof. And farmers say, I want more of this increase in price. And if you are only buying cocoa and only supporting them with cocoa, then your only negotiation line is the price of the cocoa. If you have bees, you say, okay, like, give me a break on the cocoa. I'm going to help you to become a beekeeper on the side. You're going to make the same money with the honey on the side. And at the same time, you're going to secure and diversify your business. And that's very interesting. So, yeah, this is basically.
And you're working with big companies. Can you tell us a little bit?
Yeah, so we work with. We also work with Nestlé Group in Africa. We work with Guerlain, so LVMH in China. We work with Dole. This is it's a company everybody has eaten. Not everybody knows, but everybody has eaten. It's fruit. I work with the biggest exporter of avocados in South America, called Cartama. Nobody knows the name, but they're basically, if you have bought in Walmart avocados, you have eaten their avocados. And we also work with shampoo brands, beauty brands, with marketing around bees. And Danone in Thailand, we do coconut water for them. I mean, we don't do the coconut water, but our bees pollinate the coconut trees, who are bearing more nuts, and they make more coconut water.
It's an endless winning situation. It's fantastic, really. So this is a quiz.
Okay, let's go.
What is the link between Guerlain, everybody knows Guerlain, the acclaimed beauty products, and coconuts and avocados?
Bees.
How?
Well, those are different projects, but they all have interest in working with bees. So the same model I explained in the farms. The coconuts, for example, we have worked with them. We have achieved plus 60%.
60?
60 increase. Wow. Avocados, this is a fun story because we started this pilot 3 years ago in Colombia. We put bees and we actually doubled the harvest. But with a major situation, that he had the double of avocados, so he was super happy, but they were extremely small because he did not put more fertilizer in the soil. So he told me, like, great what you do, but right now, I lose money. So he was not, he was like super happy and at the same time super unhappy. So it was a fun situation. So I told him, well, next time you know what to do, you're going to have double the avocados, big as you want, but you need just to invest a little bit more, like when you achieve that kind of breakthrough, you need to be ready to spend a bit more too. And Guerlain, so it's the wax. Every beauty brand is working on wax products because they need this to cycle out paraffin and chemical products to keep the consistency in the creams. And so we work with them to empower women beekeepers in China. So that's the link between all those projects.
So I know some people here are going to think I'm crazy, but I have to tell you that bees talk. Yes, they talk. They vote, and they have feelings. Very important.
Yes.
Tell them I'm not crazy.
No. So there's actually a book about that called The Democracy of Bees, for those ones who want to have an insightful reading at one point in life. But bees do talk. They don't talk like us, but they vibrate, and by vibrating, they emit a sound, and depending on the intensity and the frequency of the sound, it means different things. So this is one thing. They vote because they need to take decisions. For example, when the queen bee, which is the mother of all the bees in the colony, is getting old and weak, they need to replace her. And they will not replace her unless they make a vote, and the vote says we all agree to replace our mother.
That's real democracy. Huh?
Showing you another. This was the product launch in the Madison store from Nespresso in New York. So the vote. So when they need to elect a new house, when they need to change beehive, they vote because they need to make sure that the new house is going to be good for them, because they need a space where the entrance is not too big, so not everybody can come and just grab the honey. They need to have enough space to build, the comb. So what they do is they send bees to scouts. So you have a bee going, and when it finds like a place, it goes, it says, okay, it's good, and it kind of it comes back to the hive and makes a sound. Then you have more bees, like usually 5, going to the same place, and they basically verify that this bee told the truth. So then they come back to the hive and they talk again. And then you have more bees every time. And at some point, they reach what is called a quorum, which is a different way to approach the majority. It's a qualified majority, you could call that way. And when there are enough bees to constitute a quorum, then they take the decision, we go. So that's why we say that they vote, because indeed they vote, and that's why we say that they talk, because they have a way to communicate. And getting back to the story, so depending how perfect the bee thinks the new location is, it will speak louder or quieter. To tell like, I really found an amazing place, we need to go now before it's taken, or I have something but I'm not sure it's like really the best thing. And so this is why we say they talk and why we say they vote.
He really loves his little bees. Huh? You can tell, by the way he's talking about them. It's really a big love. So, what is the reality about the power of honey, for example, in cosmetics? Does it really work, or is it really a healing product?
Yes. So, I mean, you probably know honey. Then there is pollen, royal jelly, propolis, and some of you may also know bee venom. This is a very long list, but if I go a bit more in depth, honey is one of the few products from nature that are considered eternal. To give you an example, they found a 2,000-year-old honey when they opened the tombs of the pharaohs in Egypt, and the honey was still good to be eaten.
Wow.
The reason why is because if you store honey in a dry and dark place, it has within itself these antiseptic properties that are going to fight against fungus, whatever is attacking the honey. Bacteria, exactly. That's why, when you are a bit feeling a cold or flu, you drink tea with a bit of ginger and honey.
But is it real? I mean, does it work?
Yes, it does. Yes,
it's good, but does it work?
I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I'm not going to say eat honey and you're going to be cured, But yes, it has definitely the properties which are going to help to heal in a more natural way, not like antibiotics, but it will help.
And also they say that, on a wound or something, you put some honey, some type of honey, and then it's a healing process that starts.
Absolutely. So you have some hospitals starting to treat burns, exactly, but big ones with honey. Because one of the things, and I talked about a professor like this 2 years ago, is when you put a bandage on a skin that was burned, you need to change the bandage sometimes multiple times a day. The problem is every time you take the bandage off, you take all the new cells that just started forming again. You take some off when you strip off the bandage. Honey, since it's sugar, the skin will, with time, eat it. And that way, you don't have to take it off, and you can just leave it on. And that way, you recreate the same effect as a bandage, so something that's protecting the skin from being directly exposed to oxygen, pathogens, and all that. But at the same time, you don't have to take it off and to take off all the good stuff that's happening in the healing process.
And also, just to finish, you created some technology to
Yes.
help the bees feel better, because it's very important for him that they feel good. If they are stressed, he's stressed. So invented a technology to make them feel better, know what they feel, how
Listen
they feel.
to them.
Listen to them,
yes.
yeah.
Yes, because, so absolutely, having so many bees in so many remote places, I cannot be everywhere, so I had to figure out a way to listen to them and know how they were doing, how are my babies doing all around the world. So actually, I developed this, and we have a patent on this. So it's, this is a picture actually like from above on a beehive. And this is our sensor. What the sensor does is, mainly it records temperature, because bees, as humans, the first thing that a doctor does is temperature. Because we regulate temperature, and the bees as well. The bees need to be stable at 34, 35 degrees. And what we do is we map basically the temperature of the beehive, and that way we can see if the bee is doing well or not. We can see if the bees are growing or crashing, which could be a sign of, for example, chemical intoxication or lack of food. And so we have this sensor then sending us data, and that way I can call my guys and say, you should go to this area of Colombia because I think they're probably lacking of food or something is happening and you need to check on it. This is one application. The other one is that we can cross this data with the data of the weather, and that way we can tell exactly on a specific day how many bees have flown and how many flowers were visited by those bees. And this is very important for farmers because that way they can get a proxy of the harvest. Because depending on how many flowers have been touched, they know, okay, I can hope for that many nuts or beans or fruits or whatever. And this gives them kind of 9 months in advance the first idea of is it going to be a good year or a bad year.
Wow,
Yeah.
Impressive. And talking about that, you had a lot of other professional awards. We talked about the business awards, but you got also like what I call professional awards like Meilleur Ouvrier de France, Médaille d'Or au Salon de l'Agriculture. Tell us about it, and why is it so important for you?
That's that's actually my first bee company was not Ubees. It was a company called The Wild Honey, Le Miel Sauvage in French, and I was obsessed with product development, literally, and this is where I had all those experiences. So I was doing very rare honey. So I was producing honey, for example, on a volcano. I was producing honey in a mangrove, which was made with the water from the mangrove, so salty water. So the honey was sweet and salty at the same time, like the caramel. So I was doing very specific things, and I was like, okay, I'm producing this honey, very few quantities, so I need to really value it, and this is why I ventured into this. So I worked with Michelin star chefs in Paris. I worked with Le Nôtre, the pastry chef, and he actually won the Meilleur Ouvrier de France, thanks to an ice cream made of chestnut honey, one of my chestnut honey. I called the people I was working in the Martinique and said we should do a rum honey because everybody knows the Jack honey, the Jack Daniels honey, and so we did that and we won awards. I went to the Salon de l'Agriculture where I won the gold medal for the honey, the volcano honey this time.
What volcano?
It was La Montagne Pelée in Martinique. And the story was that there is a flower growing only there, and it's the flower surviving the eruption. So
Wow. Beautiful.
there was a beautiful story, but yeah, so I was really into this. So I made a beer with honey. We won the International Beer Awards. So I tried to value the product as much as I could, and this is why I did a bit of, I did a ton of different products and won a lot of awards, which is cool, but didn't make me a lot of money back then. This is why I decided to go to the pollination part of the business, which is way more profitable.
And you help us have food on the table. Thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you, Max. If you have some questions for Max, you want to be answered, please. Yes.
Are there specific bees that you use
Ye-
to do the pollination? Because I
Yes.
understand there are, so you have some bees that can do more pollination because
Yes.
they're stronger or something like that?
Mm,
Or how does it work?
You're an expert. Yes, so the bees is a very broad name. In the bees, you have, I'm going to simplify, but you have the bumblebees, so the big, fat ones making a lot of noise. You have the honeybees, those ones. This is a coffee flower in Colombia. So the honeybees. And then you have a third type of bee, which is called the bees without a stinger. Stingless bees. That's the... Exactly. I work with those ones because the bumblebees and the stingless bees, the colonies are way smaller. So they are as effective for pollination, but they are, let's say, at maturity between 200 and 400 individuals in the colony. The honeybees, you can have up to 200,000. So the power deploying a beehive compared to the other bees is just unmatched. And you have very interesting business cases with bumblebees, for example, especially in cold climates, because in cold climates, since they're bigger and a bit fatter, they work more hours, so then they're more advantageous. Some flowers, like the vanilla flower, is so specific in its design that it requires a small bee, which is basically they're too big. So you have business cases applied to different use cases, but for 80% of the pollination, it's the honeybee that we use, and we use local honeybees. You probably have heard about the Africanized, the killer bee. It has different names. So depending on the geography, we will work with basically a subfamily of the honeybees.
I have two questions, a simple one and a more difficult one. The simple one is, what is how long a bee live?
Uh-huh.
And the next one is, what is your next big idea for the next 2 or 3 years?
That's the tough one. So the easy one is the bee. You have 3 different types of bees. You have the worker bee, the queen bee, and the males. The worker bee lives 6 weeks. So very short life, works until it dies.
Wow.
And all the bees are females. So it's a female society.
Very efficient female society. I would.
That's why they
Just like
vote
that.
and take good decisions. Then you have the queen. So the queen is that's another extraordinary thing, but it's the very same egg. Depending on the food you give it, it becomes a worker bee or a queen. The queen lives up to 4 years.
Oh, wow.
So 6 weeks, 4 years. Complete change. A bee gets fed honey. A queen gets fed royal jelly. That's the only difference. And then you have the males. So the males are living, it depends. A male basically is only there for reproduction. They don't work. They're very lazy. So basically the bees, the women tolerate them during the season when they need them for reproduction, which is 2-3 months. And when a male mates, it dies after the mating. So it's a very, I don't know if I would like to be a male in the bee world, honestly.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So that's to answer your question about the bees.
But you say it's 6 weeks, but the reproduction is 2 or 3 months. So how the math are working?
For the workers, it's 6 weeks.
So the workers live 6 weeks.
But they don't reproduce.
No, no. The only bee that reproduce is the queen and the males. And basically, and it happens only once in her life because a queen bee is born virgin, so we call it a princess because it's not a queen yet. And the bees will only accept her when she becomes a queen. So when she's born as a princess, she has to complete what is called a mating flight. So she goes out, mates with males, and comes back to the hive, and then it's a queen.
There's a vetting process.
There's a vet, exactly. No, but and actually, you know, indeed, because bees communicate like ants with pheromones, and a virgin queen, so a princess, doesn't have pheromones. So she's basically nobody. And then she comes back and she has this delicious perfume, loved by all the bees, accepting her. So.
What a story.
Yes, no, it's a very specific world. The new venture for the next 3 years. So I think, you know, I think, you know, I see the business going 2 ways. One way is we see more and more people really understanding the power of bees linked to pollination. I just was in Brazil working with a melon farm, and they said that they have seen 60% increase on some tests, but they didn't understand, and sometimes only 10, sometimes 0. So they had a very clear understanding that they need bees, but how to use them properly, they did not figure it out properly. So I see a huge potential on globalized crops in the next 5 years because they need to reinvent the model. Like the chemical intensive agriculture business is coming to an end. And this is why you start seeing, you know, agroforestry. Basically, people understand that they need to start like finding ways to do the same, but in a different way that is more nature friendly. I have a picture here of. So this is, for example, a coffee farm, which is very different from what you may know. But this is the typical example of what is done different now. They plant trees within the coffee. And so basically it's a forest with coffee inside. And what this does, and it's amazing, it's the trees give leaves that are enriching the soil. Give shade, so the coffee doesn't suffer that much, and you don't need to water it that much. The tree brings also more humidity in the air, so you don't have to irrigate that much. When there is a hurricane or an extreme climatic event, the trees are protecting the small coffee that's hidden underneath the trees. And you know, I could go on like that. So this is just an example. So bees are one of the cornerstones of reinventing agriculture tomorrow. So this is one way the business is going to go. The other thing is linked to beekeeping products. For example, the cosmetics, they have understood that they need to cycle out the chemicals and they need bee wax now. Another thing, I just completed a very interesting research about dry frozen honey. So dry frozen is the way they do the food for astronauts. It's complete dehydration. Wow. If you completely dehydrate honey, it goes back to the most simple form, which means crystals of sugar. So basically, I did this and I presented this to the CEO of Nestlé, and he told me, like, I have one mission in the next 5 years. I need to make all our food healthy because I have too much sugar, because it's the way, you know, they built the business in 20 years ago. Cheap sugar to make it good for us to taste. And so they
addictive
made
also.
Addictive. But today the consumers are kind of fighting back and they need to change it. And one of the ways he can do this is by changing sugar for honey. The problem is honey is a very complicated ingredient because it's viscous, it sticks. You know, everybody who ever had his hands in a honey jar knows it's not a great feeling and you need to get rid of it. If we put it to a powder, it completely opens the possibilities of them using it. So we could tomorrow imagine a capsule of Nespresso with coffee and honey inside mixed as a powder, and then you brew a coffee that's naturally sweetened immediately. So, and this is the other way I see the business going is I see really a huge potential in developing more products, food, but also cosmetics, all kinds, based on beekeeping products. Yes?
I understand bees are disappearing,
They are.
and scientists aren't exactly aware why.
Yep.
And some believe it may be climate change or some virus or
Yes.
pollution or something like that. This was a while back that I've heard this or learned this. What can you tell us about that?
That's a good question because I'm still trying to figure it out. No, but you're absolutely right. So to give you an example, last year we had the worst die-out in US history of bees. We lost 62% of the livestock. Imagine any other industry, cattle, poultry, losing 60%. It's just completely disruptive. The truth is nobody really understands why, because last year was not very different from the year before, where we had only 40%. My opinion as a beekeeper is, I think, it's not one cause, it's a conjunction of causes. I guess, one big one is, of course, the chemicals that are, every day more present. But not only, and it would be the easy way to just blame it on the chemical companies. I think another big thing is loss of habitat. When you look 30 years ago, and I've lived that. When I was driving, for example, on vacation with my family, the windshield was just hit and dirty because all the insects, not only bees but insects hitting it. Today you drive and it's clean.
Yeah, you're right.
And this is because I think we have conquered a lot of space on nature, basically depriving bees and pollinators from habitat that is vital to them. And so I think they also disappear because we just take away their homes. And this is, bees, but there's this whole thing about the in the Arctic, with the polar bears not having enough ice in the winter to actually hunt and survive. So I think it is the same logic. So one thing is chemicals, the other is habitat, and then it's also, to be honest, like we are part of the problem as well, is the intensive beekeeping. We have become an industry where we want to make money. And to make money, we need to scale, we need to think mass production, and this is not exactly the way bees would live and be happy in the wild. So I guess it's a conjunction of all this playing together. And some years you probably have an alignment of stars, which is not good. For example, we had most of the bees in the US, they come south to winter because it's a better climate. And we had an extremely difficult winter last year because we had a lot of hurricanes in Florida. The Gulf was hit as well. So I think they have been disrupted and made weaker. They didn't die instantly. But then, they started again the year and they were exposed to chemicals of pollination and then they were weak, so they became weaker, and this is what caused it. So I think it's more, I like to see it that way as a conjunction of factors more than one cause. And this is probably why scientists, cannot find like the magic powder fixing it, is because it's not like you're sick because of this. It's like you're sick because of a multitude of factors. But again, I haven't figured out myself, so I'm not preaching a truth here. I'm just giving an opinion as a beekeeper.
When you said that you transport with the bees,
Yes.
and they are blind in the dark,
Mm-hmm.
so how long do you have to drive for, or are you allowed in order not to disturb them? And when you transport, do you choose where you go based on because you are needed, or is it because it's the better weather for the bees? Because I suppose they migrate based on the weather.
Yes.
And are bees more productive when it's in season like spring and summer
Yes.
versus fall and winter.
Yes. So to answer your question, when we move, it can be either. It can be because we have a pollination contract. So we go to California because we get paid for pollination. Or we also move because we have a huge bloom in nature. So we go to upstate New York, Finger Lake region, so Buffalo, this area, in June, because in June, if you go there, it's just an ocean of flowers. And this, for us, is dream, because we're going to produce a lot of honey, the bees are going to have good food, they're going to be happy. So we move for both reasons. To answer your question about how long can we move them, technically, there is no limit. Because bees hibernate. So this means that, for example, if you leave bees like in Canada in the north, for 6 months, they will stay in the hive. So the limiting factor for bees to stay in the hive is just the food. If they have honey, because, I mean, we eat honey, but honey is originally the food of the bees. If they have honey in the hive, they don't really need to go out. So 1 week of transportation for them is not traumatizing. It's not ideal, you know, I would not say it's natural for them, but it's not traumatizing.
So you own the bees?
Yes.
Or the farmers own the bees? You rent them to the...
We have different business models. In the US, we own 10,000 bee hives. So they're ours and we move them. In Latin America, it's a mix. It's part the farmers, part Nespresso. We also work with development banks, IFC, and they have the hives as collateral. So it's a mix. But sometimes we own them, sometimes the farmers, sometimes the big companies. It depends.
Do you have a lot of competitors? Like in the US, you know, farmers usually like to work with American companies.
So in the US,
Yes.
we have a lot of competition because beekeeping is a mature industry. The biggest beekeeper in the US has 100,000 hives. So he's 10 times bigger as we are. So he's a 100,000 million operation. So he's like super big. But the farmers are not so much. So, I mean, in the US, our crew, our staff is American. And they talk to the farmers. So we're not so much front. So we never had rejection, so to say. In other countries, we don't have any competition because what we do is unique. In the US, it's developed because farmers need bees and they rent them, and this is like forever. But a company that is going to a big group like Danone and saying, okay, you're going to invest that and you're going to get image, you're going to help your supply chain to make it more resilient, you're going to then create a product that you're going to integrate in some. This is unique, and nobody else does this, to my knowledge.
Many patents?
Battles?
You have many patents?
I have. So I have a few on the technology part. Yes, exactly.
You mentioned that bees have feelings. So
Yes.
how do you recognize when they are happy or unhappy? And do they recognize you when you are around?
Of course, it's the father, you know.
And I suppose because the workers only live 6 weeks.
Yes.
So who recognizes you is the queen, and the queen tells everyone, oh, that is home.
That's lot to say on that question. So bees are considered a superorganism. So when you think about bees, you cannot think about one bee in particular. You need to think about the colony, because knowledge is kind of transmitted. So do they recognize me? Yes. Because like everybody, I have a specific smell, and they're very sensitive to that. Do they come and kiss me? No. No. But you have some people, and this goes back to if you work them in a very aggressive way, they remember it. And then the next time you're near to them, they will come and attack you right away.
Will you repeat that one more?
Yeah, so when you work the bees,
Yes.
some people are more delicate than others.
Okay.
The bees clearly experience that, and they recognize the smell of the people they like and they don't. And so I have some workers that I go and they get stung a lot, and myself not so much. I get stung, but not that much. So yes, they recognize you. Absolutely.
Rodrigue?
Quick question.
Yes.
When the next TV show The Bee Whisperer? More seriously. You told us a story about Nespresso.
Yes.
Obviously, there was an opportunity for you to do business with them.
Yes.
They saw an opportunity for their farmers or with you.
Yeah.
Were you like Lionel Messi and did you negotiate a percentage of every honey jars that they sell?
No, I'd love to, but no, I just sell them the honey. Maybe the next venture, I will be smarter. but no, I mean, we're still, compared to Nespresso, a dwarf. So when you, go to Switzerland and you go to the Nestlé HQ, basically they tell you, okay, so that's the contract, sign it. You can discuss a few things, but they clearly tell you that there's not a lot of negotiation room.
The business model,
Yes.
for example, in South America or like coffee farms,
Yes.
hundreds of acres, probably thousands
Yep.
of acres. So I imagine you don't bring the bee and take them out.
No.
Do they live all year long? And
Yeah.
so then, what is the business model? Because I'm a farmer on Nespresso, I buy the bee once and then
See.
what's the business model?
You have two types of business model. One is outsourced. So in the US, this is how it works because you have plenty of offer. So you are a farmer, you can call plenty of beekeepers and you will have quality bees delivered to you for pollination. Easy. In South America, it's not the case at all. And this is where I was in Brazil. So the melon farm is the biggest, or one of the biggest in Brazil. It's a company doing $500 million in revenue. So they have 10,000 hectares of melon. And they have an issue is when they call to get bees, they don't, because the industry is not strong enough. So what they do is they have a different approach. They have internalized beekeeping as a service center supporting the business. So like accounting, legal, like beekeeping is a service center to the production units. And so the vision with them is exactly that one. So they buy bees, they build a beekeeping team, and then this beekeeping team is basically making sure that they have bees, they have good bees, they have the number of bees they need because it's also X bees per acre or hectare to have the right density. And so this is the other model that we work with is the farmers become owners of the bees. And usually it's a good deal for them because if they get even 10% more productivity on $500 million business, this covers more than the cost of what it needs.
So it's more consulting with your experience, your expertise, or?
So we have consulting, we have tech, because the whole idea is then to equip them with the tech to make them more agile, and this is then recurring for, not forever, but technically forever. And then it's also building joint ventures with them because, they were just telling me like, we have an issue, we have a honey, but it crystallizes. And the problem is I have those bottles where I squeeze, and if it's not liquid, it's dead for me. I'm going to lose my customers. So I said, well, we can help. And so then we tend to also build like the packing facility and they distribute. So it's also then a joint venture on how to monetize exactly. Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead. Your turn.
In your company, do you do lobbying on quality of honey? As we know, there's a lot of honey with glucose
Yep.
and so on. And also regarding the usage of glyphosate
Mm-hmm.
that we have in Europe and France.
Yeah.
It's a big topic.
So, no, zero. Why? So the fight about the blend or fake honey, you have people making probably more than 1,000 times more money than I do with that business. So I have no chance to compete. The interests are just bigger, so I don't try. There are enough brands like Nespresso, Danone, who are interested in having, among all those honey, a different positioning, and I work with them, and I'm happy like that. And glyphosate, I don't fight it because you know, in the end, I hate it, but it's a necessary evil, in my opinion. Because we end glyphosate, or we're going to have probably an increase of 30% in most of what we eat. Plus, we're going to probably have quality issues for industrial people packing. So, you know, if I'm realistic, like, so just, you know, a fun fact, but in the US, the norm tolerates up to 5% glyphosate in honey. So when you eat honey from a store, you probably eat somewhere between 0 and 5% glyphosate. But you know, it's the same when you buy a carrot or something. If you want to really analyze it, there is glyphosate on it. So the truth is, there is glyphosate everywhere now. I would love to see it going, but I don't make enough money to support that lobbying effort. Maybe one day I will, but now I just focus on you know, changing farms one farm at a time. And actually, you know, every time I put bees on a farm, they quit glyphosate because both cannot exist. So I survive, and I stay hopeful thanks to that. I say, I'm going to change, you know, the biggest farm in Brazil doing melons, they're going to move away from glyphosate. I'm going to change thousands of lives of coffee farmers who are going to move away from glyphosate. Avocados, you know, and one industry at a time. And one day maybe we're going to be done with glyphosate. I don't know.
Following along the lines of the gentleman who was asking about the coffee farms, do you export the bees?
No. So bees are an animal, and so exporting is made impossible by customs and trade agreements because it's considered like a cow. And because it can carry, I mean, it's not the same, but it can carry diseases. It's heavily regulated. So we don't move bees across borders. We work nationally. And sometimes it's an advantage. For example, you know, in Brazil and Colombia, since there is no strong industry, part of what we do is we create nurseries. Because tomorrow, you know, in Colombia, I went from 0 to 5,000 bees in 1 year. The biggest beekeeper in Colombia has like 200 hives. So I went to the market. I said, I need 1,000 swarms, you know, like the small beehives. Nobody could deliver that. So I said, okay, I'm going to build my own factory. And so I started my own propagation nursery. And, you know, that way, you know, I produce, I sell to myself and to Nespresso. And it's also a business opportunity for me.
I'm sorry we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for being here, Max, and of you for listening to the bee stories.
Thanks to you.